We should start
Hey,
recording.
everybody, the JPA.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Has not officially started.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
That is legendary.
Excellent.
Gardner.
Hello there.
Jackson.
So,
Kaplan.
before we get started, my understanding is we have some items that are time sensitive to complete before we lose quorum.
Yes, ma'am.
So we will take them out of order.
Yes, ma'am.
And,
And I recommended that after open forum that we move to the auditor's report so that you can hear that and receive it. And then after that, we go to the teleconference meetings because we need direction from the board about how you want to proceed with these teleconference meetings post February 28th. And then we can go back to the rest of the agenda. And I will try to be succinct, as my professor said, so that we do not keep you beyond 1 hour, but that might be a challenge.
well, absolutely. And of course, with regard to the teleconference meetings, it's not just a question of what we would like to do. There's some very, very prescriptive state laws.
And that's what Ms. Weddle will be taking us through. And I want to make sure that we all have that presentation understanding and then give us direction about what it is that you want us, how you want us to proceed. Oh, because, well, we should start with, well, because one option, of course, is you can just say, well, we're going to go back to pre-Brown Act and everybody meets in person and then whatever those restrictions are, but that's not the recommendation. Okay, so it's 8:32, Madam Chair, and let's see, our
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can start.
Well, wait a minute. Where do you see 5? I see 1, 2.
Commissioner Jenkins is with us.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
5? We've got 5. Betsy, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5. We've got 5. Okay.
We have 5.
And actually, if we can hold a minute, Supervisor Halbert is texting me that the link he was sent is not working. So,
Let me see if I can get Renee to figure that out.
let me see.
Betsy, can you promote Annie Louie to panelist? She's the external auditor presenting today.
Done. Should be done.
Okay.
And let's see. Chair, you're texting Supervisor Halbert?
Correct. I'm texting Supervisor Halbert
Okay.
my link. We'll see if he's able to get in with that.
Make sure
Okay.
everybody can hear this.
Oh, there he is.
All right.
I'm here now.
All right.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay.
All right.
Apologies for my delay.
Cool. All right, we're on, folks.
Okay, and Ms. Lake, I think we're ready to record and start the meeting. Betsy Lake is standing in for Aaron Rose.
Recording in progress.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the meeting of the Oakland-Alameda County Coliseum Authority, Friday, February 17th, 2023. It is 8:33 a.m. If members of the public would like to speak on items when the time to address items on the agenda is announced, you'll be prompted to raise your hands so we may see the number of speakers in the queue. We will note the last name in the container before we take comments. The host will call the identifiers of each raised hand one by one to allow the comment. Please do not raise your hands before the invitation to speak. The host will lower the hands of those who raise their hands before the invitation. All members of the public at the time of the announcement will have the opportunity to comment on the agenda items. Members of the public will also have the opportunity to comment on items not on this agenda at the end of the meeting during open forum. So we will now proceed to roll call. Commissioner Baker.
Good morning. Here, present. Sorry.
Commissioner Halbert.
Present.
Commissioner Iglesias.
Present.
Commissioner Jenkins.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Vukasin.
Present.
Oh, gotcha. Commissioner Vukasin.
Present.
Commissioner Miley. Vice Chairperson Miley. And Chair Kaplan.
Here. Good morning.
All right. We will start today with item 3, open forum for members of the public wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda. As I said earlier, please raise your hand And after your name is called, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Looks like we have one hand. Mr. Abraham.
And I would just note, there are multiple agenda items on this agenda, and we will
Hi,
call for
everybody.
speakers
Hi,
on those
Councilmember
items at that
Kaplan,
time. And so,
and
good
everybody
morning,
else.
Zenny,
Hey,
you have the floor.
like your glasses. How you doing? Hey,
Thank you so much. Good to hear you.
Now, we are considering a budget today. However, after 23 years, I'd like to note that we haven't been well served by private organizations essentially hunting for sports events for the Coliseum. I'm the only person in Oakland's history to have established and successfully built a sports commission, the Oakland-Alameda County Sports Commission and the Oakland Super Bowl 39 Bidding Committee. I'd like to suggest that the Coliseum JPA itself add a sports commission arm and finance that with the ability to create a enhanced infrastructure financing district within its environs. And the idea is that we would have a better idea of what future events are out there. There are 224 sports events active every single year. We have cities around us creating their sports events on a regular basis, and we haven't done it on a regular basis. We've done it, but not on a regular basis. So I would hope that I could move the ball toward that, because it would solve a lot of our event securement problems and pricing problems in the future. And not only that, this is becoming a trend in today. So that's my suggestion. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to have you here and to note your long history of advocacy around these matters here too. So thank you for that. Madam Clerk / Assistant City Administrator, I don't see any other public speakers. Did we receive any other public comment?
At this time, I don't see any other hands raised. So I think with your consent, we are ready to move forward. I understand I'll defer to you where you want to skip to, given timing.
Yes, thank you so much. So at the request of the executive director, we're going to take some time sensitive items first on today's agenda. And we need to give to Annie Louie the ability to screen share. So if the Zoom host could do that so that we can enable that presentation, we would then go next to the auditor's presentation.
I'm actually asking Craig Boyer to do the screen share. I just passed the baton, Craig, to you.
I believe you passed it to Chris Iglesias.
Oh, damn it.
Chris, you're now the host. Could you reassign that host to Craig Boyer, please?
Yeah, it's probably not good.
Showing the cracks in the system. Sorry about that.
And while it goes to Craig, this is Melissa Wilt. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, thanks. I'm the Alameda County Auditor Controller, and I'd like to introduce our external auditor, Annie Louie, who is a partner at Macias, Ginny, and O'Connell. And she's going to go ahead and discuss the audit of the fiscal 2022 financial statements of the Oakland-Alameda County Coliseum Authority. And just a little background on Annie. She has about 12 years of public accounting experience, which she's been specializing in governmental agencies and public pension plans. And her clients include some of the largest municipal governmental entities in the country. And I want to thank Annie for her time, but I also want to thank Craig Boyer and his staff, who've worked extremely hard and diligently to ensure that all of our accounting and financial reports of the JPA are done timely and accurately. So if we're able to switch it over to Annie, I will do that now. If Craig's able to share, if not, I can also try to share if I'm the host.
Yeah, I haven't received host role yet, so I'm waiting for that.
Chris, are you able to reassign that?
Yeah, checking right now. So I can.
Thanks.
It's not letting me do it. Which one do you push? To re-sign it?
I think if you show the list of participants, there's a little three dots to the right of your name. And if you click on that, you can reassign.
Got it. It doesn't say that I'm the host on it. Oh, I am the host.
Yeah.
Well,
And if you click on
spotlight.
on Craig Boyer's name, the little three dots, if you right click and then you can reassign. You see that?
Oh, make host. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, okay,
All right.
should be host now.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, you should be able to see the presentation now, and I'll let Annie speak to this.
We do have the presentation on screen. Thank you all for helping work out the tech. Annie, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me today, and thank you, Melissa, for the nice introduction. Today, I'm here to present the audit results for the authority's fiscal year 22 financial statement audit. In the packet, you have two reports. One is the financial statements, and the other one is the report to Commissioner. Craig, if you can please move on to the next slide. This is a summary of the result of the audit. As I had just mentioned, there are two reports in front of you. In terms of the financial statement audit, we were able to provide an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, and that is the highest level of assurance that you can achieve under a financial statement audit. So in this case, that means that we have no findings or disagreements with the financial statements. Included in the same report is what we call a government auditing standards report, and that report covers items such as internal controls over financial reporting or other non-compliance matter that we may have noted during the audit. The one thing that I would like to highlight here is that the report on internal controls is not an opinion on internal controls because our scope of the financial statement audit does not allow us to provide that type of opinion. However, if we were to note any issues in terms of maybe a control deficiency, significant weakness, or a material weakness, or significant deficiency or material weakness, we would identify in the report to you. In terms of the audit report this year, it is pretty typical as what you may have seen in past year. One thing I would like to point out is that the format and the content of the auditor's report is slightly different than what you may have seen in prior years, in that there is expanded language on the auditor's responsibility under AICPA standards. So that is a change that you will see in the audit report itself. The other report is our report to the Board of Commissioners as the governing body, and that's our direct communication as auditors to you. And it goes to a list of required communications and highlights the qualitative aspect of the audit process. Next slide, please. In terms of the first items in that report, what is highlighted is management's responsibility as well as the auditor responsibilities. As you know, management is responsible for putting the financial statements together in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle. And our responsibility is to communicate with you as the government body directly any issues that we may have found, as well as this audit strategy and timing of our audit, and then to express an opinion on the financial statements themselves.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Next slide, please.
If we could pause for just a moment, we're having some background noise. If we could mute to the host, can you mute the non-speakers? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. This slide summarizes the content of the other report, and these are typical items that you will see. These are standard communications, and as you can see on the slide right here, we don't have any special matter to report. The one thing that is highlighted here is towards the middle of the slide here, significant financial statement estimates and disclosures. This highlights the significant estimates that go into the financial statement. And the one thing that is I'm sorry, in terms of the estimates, you'll see there are 4 items listed here and the references to the respective notes to the financial statements. Lease receivable, capital assets, and earned revenue, and bonds and notes payable. Other than that, no other unusual items to be reported on here. With that, next slide. Lastly, I would like to thank management for your cooperation and assistance during the audit process. It went very smoothly, and it was also, again, conducted remotely as it was in the prior years. That concludes my presentation, and I would like to take any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you so much for doing that and for your presentation. As we do have our county auditor with us, let me, and thank you for introducing it. Let me ask you if you have any further comments or elaborations on what we've heard.
I do not, but I do again want to thank MGO and Henry and everybody at the JPA for all their assistance, along with Craig and his staff for making this go as smoothly as possible.
Well, thank you so much. And so then let me turn to my colleagues and see if anyone has any questions on the item. Seeing no hands, let us call for comments from members of the public. Members of the public who have comments on this auditor's report. Again, if your comments are on another item, we will give you that opportunity when we get to the other items. So please raise your hand if you have comments on the auditor's presentation. Seeing none, let me come back. Oh, pardon me, I see one hand. Zenny, welcome again. If Zenny could be enabled to speak, please.
And Craig, that's you as host.
Just one, it's a little bit of bugaboo that we've gone through now for 20 something years every time we have the auditor presentation, but we've never, and I don't believe this is necessarily the auditor's job, but I think we need to expand these reports so that we get projections of where we're supposed to be. Because every time I look at these, it's always a snapshot, and I feel like I'm looking at my own bank account. Well, if it were that big. So, you know, that's just my only query there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a quick comment. What you have is a highly summarized report of the auditor's report. The auditor's report is very detailed.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have posted that on the website.
Yes.
And I believe we've provided copies to each of the commissioners. And then one final comment, as Mr. Abraham duly notes, the auditor's report is not to make projections. We do that through our annual budget, and we can do that upon your request. But it's not the audit, it's not within the scope of the auditor's responsibilities.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Zenny, for paying such close attention for so long. Let me return to my colleagues. And also, Mr. Host, I would note that there are 2 of me here today, which is to say that the Honorable Supervisor Dave Halbert has my name listed on the screen. So if Craig Boyer as host, if you could correct that. Not that I mind.
I'll do it. Thank you. I got the link from you.
That's right.
So thank you so much. I'll change it.
I mean, not that I mind. We could have 2 Rebecca.
That's so funny.
Beyond that, Commissioner Halbert, did you have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
It's the
audit.
To receive the auditor's report.
Receive the audit.
Thank you. So that was a motion from
I'll second.
Supervisor David Halbert, in fact, Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner Iglesias, and we may call the roll on the vote to receive this report.
So I think we need to pass it back. Oh, thanks. Great.
I think I can still talk. All right, so for the vote, Commissioner Baker.
Sorry about that. Aye.
Commissioner Halbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Iglesias.
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vukasin.
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Miley, I think, is absent. And Chair Kaplan.
Aye.
All right. With that, we can move to presentation number 2, which is teleconference meetings.
Yes, thank you. And I believe there are slides for that too. Is someone going to screen share for that item?
Yes, if someone will allow me to share, I'll be glad to have those
I
slides.
toast back to Betsy, so Betsy has it again.
Hot
And
potato.
then baton passed to Andrea.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Andrea. You should be able to do that now.
Okay.
And they are showing. So let me welcome you all and just acknowledge, as many of us are part of many governmental and intergovernmental boards, that all of our different bodies are dealing with the sudden change of law taking place March 1st and how to set up our meetings effectively and inclusively in this shifting environment. And so thank you for bringing this presentation. So I will let the team walk through what we can do, and then I'm happy to share what I think we should do and to hear from others. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair Kaplan. So the presentation that was released was from early January, and there are a few edits or comments that I will add to make some clarifications as we are working our way through these regulatory, statutory changes. The question is about teleconference meetings and how will that change as we move forward. First, we start with the definition of what is a teleconference meeting. And the statute's government code section 54953 contains the definition of a teleconference meeting, and that is a meeting of a legislative body. And your commission qualifies as a legislative body under that act, under the government code. The members of which are in different locations, connected by electronic means through either audio or video or both. And so we've been conducting meetings by teleconference since the pandemic sent everyone home. And we've been doing so under a new statute, initially under the governor's directives under his executive orders, and then under what was referred to as AB 361. And all of that is about to change. I do note that nothing in the government code, and it expressly states, says that you cannot have more locations as opposed to fewer locations for your meetings. So that is an option, and some governmental bodies have made that a possibility. So pre-pandemic, if we look back to what existed before the world was turned upside down, and that was what we refer to as the traditional teleconference rules. In those rules, there are very explicit details of about what has to happen. And I do want to note that the traditional rules are the only rules that will survive after the end of a multi-step process that the legislature has put into place as we sort of shift from the full remote teleconferencing to a little lesser teleconferencing, and then ultimately back to these particular rules. But under the traditional rules, which could have been used at any time pre-pandemic, any of your members or all of your members could have participated remotely via either telephone or Zoom or any other function. It did not have to be audio. It could have been, it did not have to be video. It could have been audio only. The requirements, however, that each of the locations from which you were calling in had to be identified on the agenda, both the notice of the agenda and the posting of the agenda as well. So if I were calling in from the county administration building and I were a member, then my address here at 1221 Oak Street would be listed on the agenda. I would also be required to post a copy of that agenda or notice in a publicly available space for the 72-hour period before a regular meeting or the 24-hour period before a special meeting. And so that would have been applied to each member calling in from a remote location and continues to apply. More importantly, each of those locations has to be available to the public so that when the meeting convenes, a member of the public could join me at this location, would be allowed to speak from that location, and would be allowed essentially to have a meeting location at each of your different locations. It would be required that a quorum of your board, which is 5 of your 8 members, be physically within the county, although again, all of your members could attend via teleconference. As with all of the different options, votes have to be taken by roll call, and that is consistent through all the different approaches. There is this language that says that the meetings have to be conducted in a manner that protects statutory and constitutional rights. And so by that, we have to be alert to questions such as a
Hey everybody, we had a power outage here, so I'm getting us back online with a JPA meeting. One moment, please. Oh, come on.
Recording in progress. Travel of any nature that does not fit in that category. There are very confined limitations on Just Cause, and that is you're only allowed to use it for 2 meetings in a calendar year. And so that is fairly restrictive. Additionally, as I noted, the difference between Just Cause and the emergency is you don't need approval of the legislative body. You just express that you meet the Just Cause criteria.
Actually, you didn't miss much, folks.
You have to state on the record or disclose on the record at the commencement of the meeting which of the Just Cause provisions or why you are remote. And you have to make that request at the earliest opportunity so that staff can prepare the technology to allow that to happen. The second category in which you can participate remotely under 2449 are the emergency circumstances provisions. Essentially, it is a physical or family emergency that prevents a member from attending. There's no specific number on the uses, but there is an annual cap that we'll talk about in a moment. As I said before, there has to be a request and the legislative body has to take action on it and specifically approve the emergency. Consistent with other rules regarding adding emergency items to an agenda, it has to be approved at the beginning of the meeting if it's needed, and it must be acted on at that time as well. The member has to provide a general description of the emergency, but the law recognizes that there are certain privacy rights of the member. And so the description need be only very short, sufficient enough for the other members to understand and be prepared to vote on the matter. And you do not have to disclose any medical diagnosis or disability or get any personal information that would be exempt under existing law. So there is an annual cap, and that is that it is limited to no more than 3 consecutive months and no more than 20% of the meetings in any year. If the legislative body holds fewer than 10 meetings, then you can only use it twice per year, similar to the 2 times limits for Just Cause. But as with Just Cause, you don't have to post the location where you're participating from. The agenda, however, does need to list the means by which the public can participate in meetings under 2449 and how they can offer comment. And that is consistent with what we have been doing under the current rules for 361. And as we said before, because we have to have audio and visual, our technology will have to remain in place to provide a 2-way audio visual platform such as Zoom or other Teams or those kinds of functional platforms, or a 2-way telephonic service and live webcasting. That is similar to the county. The county's Board of Supervisors chambers actually provide both of these options where we webcast through the Granicus system and individual members of the public can phone in or they may choose to use the internet service of Zoom. However, note that the public must still be able to attend in person at the physical site. And so that essentially means that, we have our quorum physically located at that same site. The public is allowed to attend there, and the public and the remote members will need to be able to participate through various technological platforms. And so to facilitate meetings under 2449, again, those 2 methodologies have to be provided for. And it is clear from the staff meetings that we've had from the JPA that we do need some technology upgrades at the local on site if we're going to proceed with that option. So that's a very high level discussion of teleconferencing, and I'll be glad to try to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'd also like to note that Commission Vice Chair Miley has joined us and is in the attendee queue. So if the host could please move him over and allow him to join us on the panel. And so going first to the board members for questions, we'll start Commissioner Halbert.
Thank you, Chair. Andrea, thanks for the presentation. I have one quick question and then just a couple of comments. One, this came up in another meeting where if somebody chose to needed the 2449 and then triggered the need for a quorum to be present in a specific location, and the other members were not planning on doing that, had already agendized themselves in a remote location that was meeting all of the requirements to allow them to teleconference, that then what would happen? And the scenario presented was, well, the rest of the board could decide to deny that request 2449 to participate under those guidelines. But then I thought I saw on your report that the legislative body doesn't need to approve it. Can they deny it? I mean, so that they could proceed with their meeting, or if a member wanted to invoke 2449 and the rest of the body wasn't able to be in the same location, would they have to cancel the meeting?
So I think that if we have all the other members who are functioning under a traditional teleconferencing rule, as I understand your scenario, and so there is not a quorum of 5 physically at one location, and then there is either an emergency or a just cause situation where one of the members says, well, I need to participate remotely. And I think that obviously the problem is they may not have provided the notice and done the publication to allow for the traditional teleconferencing. So if we cannot comply with the statutory requirements of 2449, either with the just cause or the emergency requirements, I think if they're asking for an emergency, the other members would have to decline that request because we cannot satisfy the statute. And if they are announcing that they're appearing by just cause, I think we would have to deny that as well, because again, the quorum is not physically there, so we cannot comply.
Yeah, no, it would be a very sad occurrence for somebody that had a legitimate emergency that was denied so that the meeting could proceed, thereby rendering 2449 completely useless, and which I think it is anyway. Just needs to be changed. I think they got it wrong. So I'll tell you how I really feel about that. Let me just tell you, my intention is to agendize myself from my remote location, the office, my district office. You can do whatever we need to do to verify that it complies with whatever rules and regulations, which I will do my best to do. I will come in and would love to come in at our first available time. I would love to come in for as many meetings as is needed and practical. I love to meet in person, but I'm going to now in this new age of technology, utilize teleconferencing and the advantages that come with that, from synergies of reduced travel time, reduced pollution to the environment, and increased efficiency. I plan to use teleconferencing as much as I can, despite the barriers that Sacramento has put upon us. So I'll comply with those rules, but I think we all will try to do the same if we can. I'll leave it to everybody else. Now I know that not everybody else has a remote district office. So yeah, anyway, those are my comments. Thank you again for the comprehensive report, Ms. Weddle. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for those comments. And I do think we should, all of us and our constituent bodies should add to our legislative agenda advocating for further change to state law in this regard, even as we work out what we have to do under this law as it exists now for March 1st, that allowing for teleconference meetings has had many, many benefits, including it has improved access for people with disabilities, for people with small children, for people with other travel challenges. It has improved public participation. It has reduced traffic congestion and air pollution. And so the rules should not be discouraging that as these rules do. So I would like to note that.
One more thing.
Yes,
and a clarifying question. I note if we go back to the old rules, we are under the teleconferencing guidelines. Some of us declare ourselves remote, but we're otherwise back in person. We can, and I don't advocate we do this, but we could eliminate the public's ability to teleconference in and make public comment remotely. Is that not correct? Not that I want to do that. But indeed, the advantages of technology benefit the public, but we don't need to allow that to happen if we decide not to. I'm just saying that's an option, right?
Thank you. Yes, so I think that brings us to the important question of what is it that we should do given the constraints on our options. And I just want to make sure that we're clear on what the constraints on our options are. You said that AB 361 is allowable under a state or a local declared emergency. But we were told by our city attorney that it is not a locally declared emergency. In other words, the city of Oakland is currently in not one, not two, but 3 locally declared emergencies, including one due to cyber attack, one due to storm, as well as the prior one. So are you saying that that local declaration of emergency triggers AB 361?
The statutory language is a proclaimed state of emergency. It does not define whether that is or limit that in any way to a state of emergency or a local state of emergency. So under the ESA, the Emergency Services Act, we have interpreted that as being, it could be a local emergency, but remember that the requirement of 361 is twofold. It is that there has to be the state of emergency, and then you have to make the associated findings that justify the remote meeting. So certain declarations of the state of emergency would not suffice to allow for remote meetings. And typically, for example, if in the cyber attack example that you gave, unless that shut down all the technology, I mean, then you really can't even do remote. But an example would be if there were a fire or an earthquake or a local emergency were declared for that, and then you could in fact achieve the findings of the need for folks to stay home and stay off the roads and not be out and traveling, then the findings could be there. But do recall that that statute will only remain on the books for one more year or till January 1 of 2024. So its useful life is a limited nature.
Great, thank you so much. So I'll just note that for Betsy Lake for our city follow-up, because in fact the internet services in City Hall are compromised. So but that's not for the JPA. But back to what the JPA can and should do, I would like to recommend that we will undertake a hybrid option that will continue to allow members of the public to participate remotely. That we would continue to broadcast the meetings on Zoom, even as a quorum would be gathering in person. So that would mean having a camera and an audio system in the in-person location, which will presumably be at our site. But even if it was at a different site, that we would set that up so that would be a request to staff to work on setting up our site with the camera and audio equipment needed to allow for hybrid participation, so that members of the public, presenters, other people who are not officials bound by these rules can participate remotely and can engage in public speaking remotely, which means having audio equipment in the site that can audio cast their public comments to the participants. That also means, in terms of protecting the health and safety of the in-person participants, making sure that we have adequate air filtration in the site where the in-person activities will take place. and continuing to allow both members of the public, but also sometimes we have presenters who may physically be in a variety of locations, that they are also allowed to present remotely. So that means we would need a viewing screen to show those who are participating remotely in the in-person room. Now, those all seem technically accomplishable and things that we could and should be able to do. It may require some extra staff, as you'll need someone to manage the various equipment, potentially, as we would be doing hybrid meetings. And then the other thing I wanted to suggest for our consideration is that because the AB 2449 policy requires that we have a quorum on site, that we should set up our own internal process of checking in ahead of time with sufficient advanced planning. If anybody wishes to use those AB 2449 exceptions, which again, you can only use twice a year, so that we can plan ahead for that and know, because that does require us to have a quorum on site. So in other words, if 5 of us all wanted to use that for the same meeting, we could not. So I want us to be as supportive of each other as we possibly can. But if anybody needs to use that exception, to let us know ahead of time, because we can't have more than 3 of us using it for any one meeting. In terms of the traditional teleconference policy, the teleconference policy from 20 years ago that predates COVID, anybody can do that. That also needs advance notice because it must be posted on the agenda, the location from which someone is teleconferencing, and it must be posted at that location. So what I would suggest, Mr. Executive Director, and let me know how you want to set this up in terms of who on staff will handle this, that anyone who wishes to use either an AB 2449 exception or who wishes to use traditional old school teleconferencing should notify you well ahead of time so that all of those logistics can be handled and that can be posted properly on the agenda. But with that, we will certainly endeavor to accommodate anyone who wishes or needs to use any of those. How does that sound to you, Mr. Gardner?
I believe that can be accommodated. This sounds enormously complex, but maybe not. I think, though, your suggestion of early notice is going to be imperative. One of the things, a comment that is somewhat related, not directly. We have struggled to get a quorum for our meetings. We only meet 12 times a year. And I understand that. The reason you're on this board is because you are busy. Otherwise, we don't need you. Everybody's extremely busy. And so we really struggle to get to a quorum, and we're doing it now remotely. I think that we're going to really have to work hard to make sure that we have 5 people who can be physically present in the same place. And so early notice to us that that's not going to work for you. We may have to reschedule some of our regular scheduled meetings. I think we just should prepare for that.
Yes, I think that's correct. And Mr. Executive Director, I'm happy to follow up with you and the staff afterwards on the next steps on the technical details, but I think we should make sure we're setting up the camera and the audio and test that ahead of our next meeting. And of course, we can change the date and the time of the meeting as needed to accommodate these needs. But I want to make sure, I mean, you know, we are an entity that hosts all kinds of events that involve cameras and screens and audio equipment for lots of different reasons, you know, beyond board meetings, right? And so I want to make sure that we have that set up, and if there's something we don't have, that we get it in time to be able to have both the video and the audio of those who are participating remotely to be able to be shared at our site.
Yes, we will be working on that.
Excellent. Let me just check if anybody else wanted to add anything. Oh, just to add that you might need additional staffers in terms of how many people it takes to staff a meeting. We may need someone to handle a separate computer for the Zoom for those who are participating remotely. So you might need to bring in extra personnel on those meeting days.
That, yes, indeed. I will remind you that the JPA has no staff. I am a consultant to the JPA, but I act as staff. Renee is part-time. She's technically an employee of the city. All of the other people we refer to as staff are volunteers from the city and the county. And they have been willing, including Ms. Weddle and Ms. Jefferson, our council. They're volunteers. They don't act like it. They do whatever is required, and they give us full effort and just outstanding work. Same is true of Betsy Lake and Craig Boyer and Melissa. All of these are our volunteers. I think amongst us, we probably will be able to find enough people who can assist in these meetings. I'm hoping so that we don't have additional expenditures in that regard.
Well, thank you. And of course, you know, we have this company we work with on our site on event production, and these are functionally event production tasks. So
will help us in every way that they can, assuredly.
Thank you. And so currently, as I understand it, our planned next date is March 17th. Is that correct? You're muted, sir.
It is March
It's the
17th.
third, yeah. Is it March 17th?
Yes.
Third Friday in March. Yes.
St. Patrick's Day. Excellent. So we will check in with the goal of having all of that in place for that date. And if the date and time needs to be changed, then obviously we'll coordinate with everybody on that. Okay. So we will put out one more call for any other questions or comments on this item. I see one hand from a member of the public. Zenny, was your hand up from the previous item, or you wish to comment on this item? If we could enable him to speak, please.
I wish to comment on this item. Thank you very much, Council Member. The two items. First of all, don't forget there's a media component to be considered, particularly with respect to notification. Just want to throw that out there when you're making your plans. Second, this is for Henry primarily. There is a fantastic sports management program at University of San Francisco. You can offer an internship to those students and have them work for the JPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the suggestion. Thank you so much. Okay. And so with that, that concludes the teleconference meeting item. Mr. Executive Director, do you need a vote on this item?
I would defer to council. We do need some direction.
The item is agendized as a presentation, so while there can be discussion, there cannot be action other than comments and information for the director, I'm afraid.
I guess the question, based on presentation, what I'm hearing from it is that there is not consensus to go back to the pre-COVID-19 Brown Act. So that leaves us with the alternative that I think we've been discussing.
Well, the only difference would be that would mean not allowing remote participation by members of the public. And what I'm saying is I don't want to do that. I want to continue.
That's my point. That's my point.
That would be the only difference between what we're saying
Precisely.
and that system. So we're saying we do want to allow remote participation by members of the public, even by our own presenters when that's helpful for them. If they need to do remotely, that would be acceptable, and that we will endeavor to accommodate the remote needs of the board members to the extent allowable under the law, which means no more than 3 under AB 2449 at any one meeting, and no more than 2 meetings a year for any one board member. Which means to allow members of the public, to allow presenters as needed, and to allow board members as needed means we will need the equipment and the setup to enable the Zoom casting and the audio and video in the meeting space.
That is the direction that I have heard and am interpreting, and that's the course we will be pursuing for the March meeting.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all so very much. We can go back now to the order of the agenda. The next item is item 4.
I think we are actually on the third presentation. Is that right?
No, we're going to go back now.
Oh, sorry.
into a regular order.
Okay,
We're going to go back now to the executive director's report and then take up the rest of the items.
I see. We'll start with the approval of minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So for item 4, approval of minutes.
Is there a
Move
motion?
approval, Halbert.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Halbert, seconded by Iglesias. May call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Halbert,
Aye.
Commissioner Iglesias,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vukasin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Miley,
Yes.
and Chair Kaplan.
Aye.
That takes us to item 5, reports. Item 5A is the Executive Director report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Acting Secretary. I will be brief. This is our second quarter budget report. Covers the period from the beginning of the fiscal year to December 31st. We have a budget of $40,726,000. And based on our analysis to date, we're projecting a modest surplus at the end of the fiscal year. Can we, let's see, Craig, are you able to share your screen?
Not at the moment. I'm not the host currently.
Okay, how do we do that?
I can do that.
Okay. There, I intended an attachment of this one-page document, and that is what Mr. Borio will be sharing. I will be talking from the narrative.
It is
Sorry.
showing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, the budget is $40,726,000. To date, we have received about 25 million of that, which means that at 50% of the year, we have 61% of the revenues. Before we get too excited, however, we need to remember that the biggest source of revenues are the contributions from the city and the county, budgeted at $20 million. That has already been received, or at least, all of that has already been received. So that skews the percentage of the budget that we have received to date. I would note that the A's lease payment of $1,250,000, if you can see that under revenues and look under stadium, those payments are normally received in April. So that is not yet showing, but we fully expected that it will be. And then another big revenue source is the Warriors debt service payment. That is $10 million, and that $10 million have been received. So the real question is, based on the revenues not yet received, what is our realistic expectation? And again, it is that when all of these revenues are received, including some of the minor ones, that we will have a modest surplus at the end of June of 2023. Under expenditures, the administration, legal, and audit are trending below the budget. We do not expect that to change. So we expect to not expend all of the funds that are budgeted there. Our Coliseum operations are exceeding budget. We talked about this a couple of meetings in the past. That is largely driven by the PG&E increased rates. We did meet, as I reported previously, with their senior representatives, a couple of our board members and AEG staff and I. We are doing all the things that we reasonably can to control our costs in that category. This is really driven by the increases in the rates. Now, the A's reimburse us for those utility costs at the stadium. There is no reimbursement, of course, for the arena. And then we have some other adjustments in operations. There was a salary adjustment for AEG staff. None of those increases, though, will have any impact negatively on our final budget calculations. They're all covered by increased revenues or decreases in several expenditure categories. Capital outlay expenditures are projected to be within budget for the remaining of the fiscal year, notwithstanding the storm damage that we experienced recently. We still have sufficient funds in the capital budget to make those repairs. At least that is true to date. We'll be presenting our third quarter budget report at the end of March. So that report will be coming to you in April, not later than May, at which time then we'll be preparing the budget for next fiscal year. So summary, very high level, we are on track to end balanced with a modest surplus. I'd be happy to respond to any questions or comments you have.
Thank you so much. And just if you could put a number on modest.
Well,
when you say modest surplus, do you mean $10? Do you mean $10,000? Do you mean $1 million?
Madam Chair, that is a very fair question. Modest means somewhere in the range of $2 to $3 million. And that's modest because, as all of you know, clearly we don't ever know the final number until the books close. But we're pretty confident that that's where we're able to land. I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things, bring me back to this chart, you would notice under revenues for the budget, we show 36 million, and yet we show expenditures of 40 million. We are balanced. And the way we are balanced is I recommended, and you agreed, to credit back to the city and the county $2 million each. When we ended the year, we had sufficient revenues to cover all of our expenditures, and we had slightly more than $4 million surplus. And I recommended that the city and county's contribution be reduced proportionately. And since you've given me the floor, I will remind everybody again, that $20 million that we get from the city and the county, that money comes from their respective general fund. And so any excess money that we can cover all our expenses, my recommendation will continue to be that you return that to the city and the county.
Well, thank you so much for that, and great job. I think this is very good news, and it is much appreciated. So going to my colleagues, are there any other questions or comments on the budget report? Seeing none, Mr. Executive Director, do you have further components beyond the budget to your report?
No, that's the end of my report.
Okay, and so we will take public comments. Seeing one hand for public comments. Zenny, you may go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Regarding management fees, I wonder, Mr. Gardner, if you could explain for the public what the management fee structure is, and also why it's projected to increase. If I'm reading that correctly, I want to make sure I am, or if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Could we bring the slide back up, Craig? Maybe you passed it back to Betsy.
Yeah, sorry, I just passed it back.
Okay, all right. Let me see if I can find my copy.
So the management fees, we're currently projecting a little over 2 million. And that's a percentage of the revenues that the facility operator earns at the facility. So it's driven by volume of events.
And increased revenues.
So you're basically anticipating more events and revenues from those events, correct?
More revenues from those events, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so much. Do you need a vote on this item?
No, it's simply for information.
All right, so let us then go to the general manager report.
Next item, 5B, General Manager Board Report. Nicole.
Good morning. I will try to be as brief as possible. Going over the event activity, the added events, Future on April 1st, Burna Boy, April 8th, Anirudhu Ravichandar, April 15th, Suga, May 16th and 17th, and a canceled event indefinitely, Jubin Natyal. And two other updates I wanted to just bring to your attention and go over very quickly. We had the City to City Job Fair and Expo on January 31st on the Oakland Arena floor from 1 to 4 p.m. There were over 50 employers there, and there was an estimated 800 plus attendees and job seekers. It was a great collaboration with the organizers, the Private Industry Council. It was amazing. Very, very good turnout. And the second update, just wanted to give you all an update about the stadium power. The permanent solution to the stadium power damage caused by the major storms at the end of last year and the beginning of this year was restored, thankfully, this past Wednesday morning. This involved our engineering team, outside electricians, high voltage partners, and more. There was a damaged high voltage cable that had to be sourced all the way down in Los Angeles. The second phase of the permanent restoration will continue after the Supercross event this Saturday. Just wanted to give you all an update that the power is back, and after Supercross, we will continue to do more testing throughout the entire stadium, even parts where power did not go down, just to be completely ready and safe before the first A's game, which is on March 26th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so, colleagues, are there any questions or comments on this report? Seeing none, we can go on to the next item.
I believe the next item would be the presentation from Roots Soccer.
And I did want to just acknowledge that Vice Chair Miley appears to have jumped back into attendees, and I'm having issues. It's not allowing me to promote him to panelist.
Okay, who is currently the host?
Oh, maybe it just worked. Let's see.
He's back in. Yes, I see.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Vice Chair Miley, welcome back to the panel. Did you have any questions or comments on this item?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we may proceed to the next item.
The next item will be a presentation by Roots Soccer, and I believe Lindsay Behrens is going to do the presentation. And Ms. Tan had asked, I think, that we allow somebody to share screen, and I can't remember.
I think I will allow Lydia Tan to share screen, and there we go. Let's see if that works.
You just transferred host capabilities.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully that worked. To share screen, I think that's the way I have to do it. Yeah.
Okay, we have the screen sharing. So let me welcome all of you and express our excitement and appreciation for the growth of the Roots and the Soul, and for soccer more broadly in Oakland and the surrounding region. We know this is a growing sport and an important one in our community. I just want to make sure to note that we are not agendized for any action on this today, nor is there a recommended action before us today. So this is a informational discussion in which we will not be taking action, but we want to appreciate everyone involved, and thank you for being here, and give you the floor to make your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you having us here today. I am Lindsay Behrens, the president of Oakland Roots and Oakland Soul. We are the first purpose-driven sports team in the United States, and we are entering our third year as a professional sports club in Oakland. Our purpose is to harness the magic of Oakland and the power of sport as a force for social good. From day one, we have focused on increasing the health, equity, and happiness in Oakland by winning soccer games, developing local talent, improving access to sport, and being a sustainable pro sports team in Oakland. Last year in Oakland, we donated more than $120,000 to causes and underserved communities. With our partners Anthem Blue Cross and Positive Coaching Alliance, we trained and equipped 100 community coaches on how to coach soccer and use sports to teach life lessons such as teamwork, leadership, and resiliency. With Unity Council, we co-hosted the Oakland Street Soccer Cup at the heart of Dia de los Muertos. With Black Cultural Zone, we brought free soccer and equipment to their outdoor play days in East Oakland. And with our 6 purpose partners, which are grassroots nonprofits in Oakland, we hosted at Oakland Roots games hundreds of kids and their parents who otherwise would not have access to professional sports in Oakland. We are also leaders in anti-racism and gender equity work globally. We are a founding member of the Anti-Racist Project, an action-based approach to tackling systemic racism in soccer and society. We helped to launch Switch the Pitch, an anti-racism education program aimed at youth coaches. We are a founding member of Play Proud, an initiative to make soccer safer for members of the LGBTQ+ community. And this year, we are very excited to launch Oakland Soul, our women's soccer team. Soul will begin play this year in the USLW League, a pre-professional league. We plan to promote Soul to Super League, a professional women's league launching in 2024, as soon as we have a venue to accommodate 2 professional teams. In just a few years, the Oakland Roots and Oakland Soul have grown dramatically. We regularly sell out our current game day venue at Laney College. Last year, we distributed over 60,000 tickets. We have nearly 100,000 followers across our social media platforms and more than 50,000 individuals on our mailing list. Our fan net promoter score is over 80. That means people have a really good time at our games. We have fans from every corner of Oakland who represent every neighborhood and community as reflected on this map of our fan base. We are also a proud member of the Oakland business community. We have local partnerships with Oaklandish for merchandise, Line 51 for beer, UCSF Health for healthcare, and East Bay Community Energy is our sustainability partner. This year, we will have partnerships with 17 local bars and restaurants to promote watch parties for our away games. We also have partnerships with the Oakland Zoo and Visit Oakland to promote the town. We have 65 full-time employees and 82 part-time employees. Those numbers will grow significantly when we have our own venue. On game days, we create hundreds of jobs employing local food trucks, local security, local janitorial staff, and members of OPD. Right now, we play our games at Laney College. We love playing at Laney, but we cannot continue playing there beyond 2024. The venue is too small and we cannot accommodate all of our fans or generate enough revenue to cover the cost of putting on our games. Laney rightly puts their students' needs first, but that creates uncertainty for us that we can't have as a professional team. We put down and pick up a soccer pitch for every game. Pitches aren't made for that, and ours is rapidly deteriorating. We want to make Soul a fully professional team, but we can't do that at Laney because there aren't enough available dates to add a second professional team. Finally, the Oakland Roots would like to express our support for AASEG and their redevelopment of the Coliseum. We believe there is a path forward that allows a game day home for Roots and Soul and allows for the full and timely development of the Coliseum property. Oakland is our home. It's where we want to live, train, work, and play our games. So I will turn it over to my colleague, Lydia Tan, to discuss our options for a new game day facility in Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome, Lydia Tan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Lindsay. Can talk a little bit about the more technical aspects of looking for an interim home. As Lindsay mentioned, we're currently at Laney, and that capacity is at 5,000 fans. And she also mentioned we regularly sell out. So when we started to think about what would an interim stadium look like as we are looking for a long-term home, this is the list of things. One is a 10,000 fan capacity so that we can continue to grow. The ability to schedule both the Roots and the Souls team games at the same time, accessible locations, and availability of parking. Our lease with Laney right now expires in 2024, so we're looking for an interim home starting in 2025, which is very quick. And as a result, we started to really narrow our search down to sites that have already had the underlying zoning in place so that we could be up and running very quickly. And then the last one, which is really important, is because this is an interim, this would be an interim stadium. The idea of doing as little intervention as possible to make the site ready for us was important. There's a modular stadium system is essentially a kit of parts that get delivered to the site, get assembled up, and once we are ready to leave and move to our permanent home, we can disassemble and carry the stadium away with us. So that was important to us. And aside from technical goals, We also wanted to make sure that there were some qualitative goals that we could achieve as well. One is to expand beyond the stadium and think about ways to activate the local community. How do we leverage our facility to continue to benefit the community, and then improve our fan experience? You may have seen that we had a fan survey that went out recently and got some great feedback about what our fans enjoy about our experience and what they would like us to see changed. And so certainly an intimate family experience, something that we're going to try to keep on. Folks love our block party. We have the local food trucks. They'd like to wait less time in those lines. And so we'll have to think about how to address that. But they really love the whole vibe of the local food trucks and really making it a neighborhood party. And then, as Lindsay mentioned, just making sure that we are continuing to invest in our local businesses as we spend dollars. So as we started our search for an interim stadium, we looked at a lot of different ideas. We really appreciate a lot of suggestions that many of our friends and colleagues provided to us. Ultimately, though, we were down to 3 and then really down to 2 that had adequate size, adequate zoning, and that is Alameda Point in Alameda, the base reuse area, and then also the Coliseum. And when we started to approach both the City of Alameda and the Henry at the JPA, as far as Coliseum was concerned, we were very quickly suggested to look harder at Malibu. I think ASM was concerned about us being on the parking lot proper, given that the Coliseum and the arena are still quite active, and parking was still needed. So we were really pointed to Malibu and have spent most of our time with Malibu. With respect to Malibu, what we have done to date is really try to do kind of a high level, are there any fatal flaws to the idea of occupying Malibu for an interim period of time? So we did a physical test fit, which I'll share with you in a minute. We had two good beginning conversations with the JPA team about making sure that there was never a point in time where there were 3 events happening at the same time, simply to accommodate the need for parking and coordination. And as we talk through schedules, we actually think that that's a very doable goal. We did some high-level technical due diligence as well, looked at the geotechnical issues, environmental issues on the site. There's a couple of easements on the site, and we have investigated those and had a very quick call with BCDC about their jurisdiction over the creek that is adjoining to the site. And then, talking with the JPA, initial conversations with AASEG, to really understand their long-term development plans and to make sure that we are completely aligned in making sure that their plans to redevelop the Coliseum are things that we can support, and we can make sure we structure any plans to make sure that they have a clear pathway to redevelopment. So specifically for Malibu, we are proposing a stadium that has the 10,000 fan capacity. It's really a game day venue. We would not be practicing here. We would be looking for a practice facility in other places. Oops, sorry. And then in terms of the on-site, it would be the stadium and all those operations, and off-site at the Coliseum site, we'd be looking for parking, bike parking facility, and then also pedestrian access from BART. So just a diagram of the areas that we were looking at. You can see the dotted line that would take BART riders down to the site and up to Coliseum Way. And then the blue area would be where we would propose a primary parking B, and then in the triangle is Malibu, is the Malibu site. Just a aerial of the same diagram. So this is a test fit. This is not a design, but we needed to understand from a geometry standpoint whether or not we could put a rectangle into a triangle. And it looks like we can. As you can see, we've got the field at a really great north-south direction. There's an electrical easement on the west side. And so we can't build anything permanent there, something that we can't take away in a day's notice. And so we have stayed away from that area. But we think it's a great opportunity for our block party just to get supersized along there, which means that the bulk of the stands are on the, I'm sorry, that was the east side. The bulk of the stands are on the west side of the field, which is actually really great. And as you can see, the main entry would be right at the corner of Coliseum Way, right next to the parking lot. And just a couple of three-dimensional images that kind of show how this fits on the site. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Lindsay to close us down.
So thank you for this opportunity today. We want to be the first step in the Coliseum redevelopment to kickstart job creation and activity at this site. This stadium will allow us to stay in Oakland, increase our community impact, and search for a permanent home in Oakland. Our plan is flexible and movable, and we are committed to cooperation with all of the parties involved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. That was quite lovely. And thank you for all the work you've been doing to expand soccer, including both men's soccer and women's soccer, and the fan base and the excitement. Certainly the game crowds are beautiful and exciting. And I like that you're looking at a way to continue to have the food truck experience, which people so enjoy and which is so lovely. And of course, this is not before us today for action. So let me just say, as your chair, I'm happy to continue to work with you and all the stakeholders toward refining this into something that could be practicable, and that to make sure that we're taking all those needs into account. And of course, that the City of Oakland has, in fact, entered into an ENA with AASCG, the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, for the Coliseum proper. And of course, it's important that they be fully involved, and that those two efforts would be fully coordinated. So I'm pleased to hear that there have been meetings there, and I'm happy to continue to support that effort to make sure that we can have a positive and harmonious effort, as well as discussions about potential long-term placements, including, the Peralta College site or other sites that might be worth pursuing together for long-term placement. So thank you. Before I call for public comments, do any of my colleagues have anything they wish to ask or add at this time? Seeing none, we will call for the public speakers. So members of the public who wish to comment on this. Oh, pardon me, Commissioner Iglesias, your hand is up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to thank Lindsay and Lydia for the presentation. It's really helpful and exciting. We're obviously big supporters of the roots and soul and everything. And the visuals, I think, were super helpful. Just to kind of see how, that was like really, really helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, we will note for the record how you put a rectangle into a triangle is an excellent thing to get to depict. So thank you for that, and it's good to have you all here. We will now go to the members of the public. Zenny, welcome yet again to the floor.
Thank you. Was I unmuted, or I'm talking? Okay. Fantastic presentation, and thank you all for what you've done with the Oakland Roots. Very exciting. Two questions. First of all, has anyone looked at the drainage issue regarding the Malibu site? It's been a problem from time to time. That's the first one. The second one is the presentation. When I look at something like that, I always think, okay, what's the cost? What's your ability to pay for it? And what's your funding gap? And how do you propose to, fill the funding gap? So have you all worked on that? Thank you. Worked that out, excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Gardner, do you wish to address that? Or that may be something for follow-up?
I think those questions better for Ms. Tam.
Okay, thank you. Lydia Tan?
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to hand host back to Betsy. So the two questions, the drainage issue, Zenny, it'd be great to hear a little bit more from you offline about what the drainage issue is. The site is high in the middle by about 8 feet or so. And so in terms of being able to have a flat field to play with, we know that we're going to have to regrade the site to a certain extent and would take on drainage. We've already talked about some strategies for keeping the storm water on site once we're finished. So maybe the improvements we're proposing might actually help long-term the site as well. In terms of the cost, I don't know, Lindsay, if you'd like to address.
Sure, I'll address that. There are a lot of factors that are yet to be determined that will determine how much the site will cost to develop and the structure will cost to build. But our ownership is confident that with the right structure, they can find funding for this temporary stadium in Oakland.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, since we're not actually voting on a proposal today, it's reasonable to not have that level of detail. I just want to be clear that we're not putting it on the spot because we don't actually have a proposal we're voting on. So it's okay to not have that yet. And, when we get to that point, of course, we would have that. And just to be clear, you're talking about a lease of the property, not a purchase.
Most correct, yes.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I just want to really thank you for all the great work and positivity in the community, as well as the work on this site. I do see one other public speaker from members of the public, Jesse. Oh, and two more. So I believe, Betsy Lake, you are now host again of the Zoom. If we could enable the remaining public speakers. Thank you.
Mr. Baruch, you are.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time to public comment and for this meeting to be open and publicized in advance. And it was great to see the proposal from the Roots. I'm a big Roots fan. I'm looking forward to the Soul this year. And I just want to express a vote of confidence or a vote in favor of cooperation between all parties involved. I'm also a big WNBA fan, and I really hope we get a team here as soon as possible. So I think, anything we can do to get the parties in the same room and facilitate that cooperation. I think that's, what I'm hearing from my fellow fans is that we want to see that cooperation happen. So I'm glad to see that that's featured in the presentation. So I hope that can continue. And I just want to say thank you to everyone involved.
And next we have Natalia Pemberton. You are allowed to speak.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I live in Oakland. I plus one Jesse's comment around really supporting the cooperation here. I think we have so much creativity in Oakland and so many people who care about our city and our people. And I am really happy that we have the opportunity to see all of these different vibrant organizations working together. I am here to really ask for the JPA for your support of Oakland Roots as they try to build their interim stadium. You know all about the Roots. They're established here, and we have a great fan base, and they're inclusive and they're diverse. But like the thing that stands out most to me, much the Roots care about Oakland. And I feel like that's something that is in common with y'all on the JPA and with the other people who are involved in the transactions. I see the Roots out there supporting Oakland business, supporting Oakland people, and just being loud and proud about how much Oakland means to all of us. And so enabling the Roots to continue to play in Oakland, I think really sends a signal that those of you who have power in Oakland are willing to support organizations that don't just want to be here, but are committed to doing great work here. And so I'm really urging you as the JPA, along with the Oakland City government and the AASCG, to work together in good faith. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Wayne Binkley. You are allowed to speak.
Thank you so much. I'm also joined by my wife, Laura Grace Ashton. We're just very excited about this proposal. As East Oakland residents, we think it'd be a great, immediately available kind of resource. While a lot of development is known to take time, the Roots are an organization that is proven and has an active fan base now, engaged in the community. And we really think that this would be a great opportunity, both for residents of East Oakland, such as ourselves, and everyone throughout Oakland, to really have a great opportunity for what is an empty parking lot at this point.
And just to add on to what my husband's saying, we're East Oakland residents. We live on East 14th and 70th Avenue. And this area is Oakland. This is the heart of Oakland. And this is what people think of when they think Oakland. This area has always had the Coliseum and the arena, or at least it has since my mom was a kid in Oakland. And, it makes sense for the Roots to be in East Oakland. It makes sense for us to be at this lot. And, the people of Oakland want it here. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next hand is Lauren Wheeler.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for, I guess, having this conversation. I'm a resident living in District 3. And my family, we've been season ticket holders since the Roots basically began. And for us, it's been a really important way to show my kid, who is 8 now, what civic investment can look like. He's happy to see people who look like him in the stands. He's happy to see people who look like him on the field. Doesn't hurt that his name is Pele. He's a soccer fan. So for us, it's really important that this team that is rooted in Oakland remain in the city. So we really want to see Oakland, the city of Oakland and the JPA, I think, work to support the idea that this team stay here. To me, that feels important. Culturally, it feels important politically. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And then we have a caller with the name Don't Mind Me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The ASCG has earned the right for that adjacent area and everything to build around there. The A's lease ends the end of next year, and I imagine once they get to the DDA process, they're going to break ground immediately and get jobs and everything rolling there at the Coliseum. If you look at any iteration or any rendering or drawing, that Malibu home base site is an entry point. It's very, very important to the overall vision. The Roots would just be in the way. We're doing this for a temporary situation. Please, let's just stop it. This is ridiculous. You East Bay politicians, you stay doing this time and time again. You make the wrong decisions and you're doing it again. The ASCG should be the lead dog on this. And if they have concerns, they're not with this, then you should respect that. Otherwise, all this talk of systemic racism and all that other stuff, you guys are just ignoring it. It's just a bunch of hot air. Don't do this. Roots, you guys go move to Alameda or somewhere else, though. You guys are not needed at the Coliseum. Thank you.
And I think that concludes the last of the public speakers.
Well, thank you so much, and really appreciate everyone for being here. And I will just restate the importance of effective collaboration and the fact that the city of Oakland is actually in a formal exclusive negotiating agreement with AASCG for the Coliseum as we work to enhance and revitalize this site and work with all the various stakeholders for a positive future. And thank you for sharing the pictures and for spending the time with us here today. As we discussed, this item is not an action item today, so we will certainly continue to follow up with you on next steps. And thank you for being here, and thank you for the important work. And so I believe that takes us to item 7.
Item 7 is a discussion item, and the first discussion item is discussion to develop a plan launching cricket setup at the Oakland-Alameda County Coliseum and to host cricket games in the fall of 2023.
Thank you so much. To Mr. Gardner or your team, do you wish to make any introductory remarks?
I can, and I will try to be brief. We have had our follow-up discussions with the leadership team of the International Cricket Council regarding an event for 2024. Those discussions are continuing. I've reported to you in the past that we have two major challenges to overcome. And to be frank and direct, we have not made much progress in that regard. In our conversation with Chris Tetley of the International Cricket Council, we did talk about what future opportunities might look like if 2024 does not materialize. And so it was our chair who advanced this thought that, and with ICC, that we began to look at other possibilities for cricket through ICC or through others. Starting in the fall of 2023. So that's the reason this is on the agenda. Madam Chair, I turn it to you.
Well, thank you so much. And so what we have before us is a discussion to launch a plan to enable cricket to be played at the Coliseum, in the fall of 2023, November of 2023, to be able to host cricket, which is the second largest sport played in the world. And it is growing dramatically throughout North America, and particularly Alameda County is home to one of the largest shares of cricket fans throughout North America. And we have seen incredible growing interest in cricket play throughout our communities. And so the reason for November as the recommendation is to not have interference or conflict with baseball season. And so my recommendation and suggestion would be that we would ask the team here to begin to undertake efforts to host cricket at the Coliseum in November of 2023, including that they would have our blessing to pursue it, and would engage in outreach not only to ICC, but to other cricket entities throughout the nation and beyond. There's a cricket team at Stanford, there's USA Cricket, there's Canadian Cricket who might be interested to come play here, and others as well. There's also women's cricket. And so I would also just share, by way of important background, that many baseball stadiums would have great difficulty being converted for cricket, but we have this particular size and shape that is unique to us and our unique history of multi-sport play that would enable Oakland and Alameda County to be a particularly effective place to be able to set up for cricket and allow us then to welcome and harness this growing fan base of this growing sport that is particularly popular in Alameda County. And Supervisor and Commissioner David Halbert has also become significantly deeply involved also in the world of cricket. And so let me also pass the baton, or perhaps the bat, to you if you wish to add anything regarding this item.
Yes, I think we're in a perfect time in the explosion of cricket here in the U.S. It's been here for a while, but it's just sort of taking off. It's maybe where soccer was 20 years ago, and soccer is getting super popular, has been super popular. We're seeing world-class teams from America competing, winning in soccer. I think it's just a matter of time for cricket. I note that here at the Coliseum Arena, we've had several Indian concert events, and they're packed. I note that we have a large and growing Indian population, and they love cricket. It's a second religion for them. Sometimes families that play cricket are deeply passionate about it. And they're not the only ones that play cricket. As you mentioned, around the world, the West Indies hosting the World Cup for cricket next year. South Africa, London, England, Australia, hundreds of countries play cricket. I would love to see a international exhibition match, just like we send NFL teams to play a league game over in London. Their teams could have a league game here in Oakland, and it would draw a lot of fans. And so we're at the right time, and I think we have the right team on board with our commercial agents, Nicole and her team, to be able to reach out and engage and come back with a fact-finding mission of their own. We would be very successful, I think, in doing that. So it's worth the time and effort, and I'm very supportive of providing that direction. I think not only fact-finding and inking deals, so to speak, but we'll have to also investigate the capital needed to make ourselves cricket ready. We have a little bit of knowledge in that area, but maybe some more to go. But the stadium is there, it's available. I note that I don't know when, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the A's have it until a certain time, but I don't know when that expires and what the availability is. But in the off season, we have opportunities, and we may have opportunities in the long run with the emergence of the potential emergence of Major League Cricket here in America. Don't know where that's going to go, but it's in discussion. And so full steam ahead on investigation would be my hope. And I echo the comments that Chair Kaplan, you made earlier today. Cautiously optimistic, but noting that I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you so much. And next up is Commissioner Baker.
Thanks so much. I just want to say thank you, Chair Kaplan and Commissioner Howard, for your leadership on this. Coming more from the private sector, and this is kind of, I think, also directed to some of the comments we heard publicly. I'm incredibly encouraged and impressed by the responsiveness, the initiative, and the leadership that this board is taking on making sure that we pursue the vision that we've set forth, which is to be as responsive and forward thinking to make sure that we leverage the assets that we have for our community, right? And so there's so many different ways to skin the cat. There's a ton of analysis that's being done. We talk on the phone often. We pick up the phone. This feels very nimble, lean, and agile in a way that we know will lead to success. Importantly, we have the relationships with the ICC, with USA Cricket, with the teams here locally, and they're equally as excited. So we know the will is there. I just want to underscore the fact that from an operation standpoint, from the ability to move forward to get this deal done, and then to market it and show our community how we can actually bring something exciting to the Coliseum, that's what's really encouraging. That's what gets me excited. So just wanted to put that sentiment out there so that everyone knows that we're really about this. And thank you, Executive Director Gardner, for your leadership, and everyone else on the board.
Thank you so much. And so in terms of next steps, I think what we would be asking our team to undertake is both to start doing some outreach to potential cricket participants, as well as the scoping for setting up of the facility with a goal of doing so this November, that is November of 2023. So to Mr. Gardner or other members of the team, any comment on that in terms of next steps and time horizon?
I don't know if Ms. Strange is still on the call, but she and I and her team work very closely, and will continue to do that with the three of you who've been actively engaged in this, Madam Chair and Mr. Baker and Supervisor Halbert, and I see Chris Iglesias is still on too. So the four of you who have been leading this effort and giving the charge. So we will be reporting back to you, I hope as early as March, about what efforts we're able to undertake and what will be necessary to prepare for some fall event.
Excellent.
A big obstacle is removed by thinking about this during non-baseball season.
Well, exactly.
It is in the way of the 2024 event.
Well, exactly. And I think there's kind of a theme that we keep hitting on today of how we can have revitalization and excitement and opportunity in ways that are harmonious and not in conflict with one another. So may we be called the repairer of the breach as we seek to go forward, and we'll look forward to hearing back. And then I do think also then to start reaching out to the various cricket entities to see who is interested in playing here during such a time window, which would be around November of 2023. So we can take that into account in our plans, including women's cricket as well as USA cricket, Canadians, and even the collegiate level as well. I think could be interesting and would get a lot of turnout. So at this time, we will take public comment on this item. Members of the public wishing to speak on this item can raise your hand. Zenny, I see your hand is up. Is that for this time, or this is a leftover hand?
No, that's for this time. Thank you.
Allow Mr. Abram to speak.
Yeah. No, that's for this time, and thank you very much, council member. Question: is there a business plan attached? This is very exciting. It actually is all over my blog aggregator, Cricket, and it's going to be huge. But is there a business plan attached to this? Also, is there a kind of splitting of responsibilities so we don't accidentally wind up in some sort of situation where a board member is, acting in a way that might get us in trouble? We really have to be aware of that sort of thing rather than just talking about this and saying we're going to do something X date or Y date. There should be a plan behind this, just something short to really align us properly. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I believe I see another speaker. If the host could allow the next speaker to speak.
Yeah, hello. My name is Jorge Leon. I'm a Deep East Oakland, Trevor Reed district. And I'm fully supportive of cricket, the roots, AASEG, anything positive in that area. So I'm encouraging all of you guys to just, push this forward. Let's move it together, especially with the A's as well. So I'm in full support, and I'll be championing and an ambassador if you need me. I'll be out there in the streets and increase tourism as well in Oakland. That's what we needed. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That does appear to complete the public speakers on this item. So thank you all, and we will look forward to our continued follow-up, which of course that continued follow-up will include things like the costing, the potential expenditures, the potential revenues, etc. So thank you for that. And that brings us now to our next discussion item. Mr. Miley.
Yes, Chair Kaplan, just on the cricket item, I just wanted to thank all of you for your work on cricket and the thoughtfulness in terms of trying to figure out how we could get over the conflict with, with baseball, and the fact that we're looking at potentially trying to offer this opportunity during a time that doesn't conflict with baseball and have some exhibitions and things of that nature. Because, I, for one, I don't have a clue about cricket. I'd love to, see an exhibition so I can, understand the sport and maybe get more enthusiastic about it. But I don't have a clue. So I think the direction that you're going in is a fantastic direction. So I just wanted to thank all of you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair, and not only Vice Chair Supervisor Miley, but Chair Emeritus. Supervisor Miley has been chair of this entity for quite some time and led many important developments. So thank you for that. And yes, we are seeking to have a win-win where we can both bring cricket here and then demonstrate to cricket followers in the cricket world that cricket can and does work in this facility, and do so in a way with as minimal conflicts as possible. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And Mr. Vice Chair Miley, as you turned on your camera, it's actually your time again for the next item. So let me allow the acting clerk to call in the next discussion item.
All right, the next discussion item is a request from Vice Chair Miley for a $150,000 contribution to AEG Community Foundation.
And just before we proceed, I just want to be clear that this is not before us for action today. Is that correct? Mr. Executive Director?
That is correct. No, it's not notice for action.
Okay, so we will have a discussion about this. So let me start by giving the floor to Vice Chair Miley, who requested this item.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The AEG Community Foundation, we had a presentation on the foundation from Nicole Strange a few meetings ago. And then also one of the board members for the foundation approached me a while ago as well. I think the foundation does a lot of worthy work to support youth and community-based organizations and projects. They are in need of support. I think when the Raiders were here, and maybe even the Warriors, they had the opportunity to give resources to fund the foundation. But I believe now the foundation has, I don't want to say suffered, but it doesn't have the same financial opportunities it had in the past. And I think because of what they do, I just really feel that this would be something worthy of support. And I want to make it clear, Nicole Strange from AEG, she did not approach me about asking for the JPA to make a contribution. I'm doing this on my own accord as the former chair and also as county supervisor. I just think that we, through the JPA, can afford to support this foundation for the work that they do in the community. And I know a board member from the foundation is on and can talk more about what the foundation does, as well as Nicole. But I wanted to put this before the JPA today to see if there was a, for lack of a better word, if there was a path forward for us to support the foundation. And I know legal's taking a look at this as well. And if there are no legal impediments, then it's just a matter of whether or not the JPA board wants to throw some support to the AEG Foundation. I don't think $150,000 from our budget is anything that would be a sacrifice for us. Let's put it that way, based on the return that we get on those resources through the foundation. So that's pretty much the pitch at the moment. But if Lynn Turner is here, he's on the board for the foundation. Lynn is a prominent African-American business person in Oakland, and Lynn could speak to the merits of the foundation as well as Nicole. So if the chair is comfortable with that, maybe Lynn could speak and maybe Nicole as well. And once again, this is not a request from Nicole. She did not ask me to do this. I'm doing this on my own volition.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, as we do need to get that legal analysis in terms of the JPA power and process and authority around making contributions and how those would be done or selected. Of course, you all as county supervisors have your own discretionary budgets from which such disbursements could come in the meantime, as obviously the JPA going into this new line of function. I was told that we need to get clear on the legal issues around that. However, if there are speakers on this item, I do want to make sure to hear them. I'm looking to see if there are any hands or if
I can definitely jump in here as well.
Yes,
if it's appropriate. So yeah, I just want to talk more. Thank you very much, Nate, for bringing up this very important topic. So the AEG Community Foundation, some of the events that are slated for us to do this year are a Read Across America event, a booster seat giveaway event, a 4th of July essay contest, job shadowing at the arena, our Halloween trick or treat event, college financial prep workshop, season of giving, artist contest. So there's many things slated to happen this year, and the mission and the focus of this community and the board is the youth of Oakland and Alameda County. It's all about the kids. Like Nate was mentioning, and I mentioned on a previous meeting, that the funds for this used to come from Raiders and Warriors bag check. And there is no funds coming in anymore, obviously. There is no bag check anymore. So the budget for this, the funding for it has gone away. So we absolutely want to continue giving back to the community and the youth. We just need to find a funding source to be able to continue doing this amazing work. We used to have 3 scholarships that we would give out. We used to have a huge shoe giveaway at the arena. There's some events that we haven't been able to do because of the depleting budget. So it's a very, very important. And thank you, Nate, for bringing this up again.
Thank you so much. And that is great to hear. And as we look at this, of course, looking at what it is specifically that we would be funding could also help, and can also help determine to what extent there aren't legal issues or alignment with the mission of our funds, right? So I do think that some of those do sound like things that could be in alignment, but obviously we haven't yet gotten that advice. So we'll need to make sure that we get that. And of course, the supervisors have discretionary funds that don't have those legal constraints in terms of funding as well. I do see several of my colleagues' hands up. Commissioner Baker.
Thank you, Chair Kaplan. So they have the saying, empty mouths don't get fed, right? So I think that that's a good start, former Chair Miley, to make the ask. So appreciate that. I used to run grants for Silicon Valley in the Bay Area for Wells Fargo. And one of the things we did as a funder is, to the chair's point, we made sure there was focus areas that were aligned, right? It is implied, based on what you said, Nicole and Commissioner Miley, that those areas of alignment have been there previously, and therefore they're still there. So would like to just know a little bit, not on this call, a little bit more about how that focus area played out in terms of impact, right? So after alignment of the focus areas, then what does the impact look like? So this is out to the foundation, AG Foundation would love to get a little sense around the impact, right? The impact being, what type of processes are you guys going to put out there to deliver impact? What are the outcomes of those processes, and what's the quality control around ensuring that impact, right? So impact, and we can have this deeper dive, could mean X number of underserved with this demographic people that we delivered this outcome, backpacks, whatever, right? How many of them received them, and then how did that affect them in a positive way? So we'd love to just understand impact after we get confirmation on alignment. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
It's the last item.
Thank you so much. Great point. Next up is Commissioner Iglesias.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Miley, for bringing this to us. My question is pretty simple. I just want to know if there's any way that we could do more. I've seen the impact of the work over the years. I think it's really important. I know we've lost some of the revenue streams, but if we could be creative and see if we could just add.
And thank you so much, Vice Chair Miley, for bringing this forward. It seems like there are a lot of great things that the foundation is doing in the community. I'd like to see a presentation of all the activities so that we can collectively think of how we can best support the foundation in a sustainable way. And I had a couple of questions about, from the bag check, what was the average budget that you guys were bringing in, and seeing how we can get to a point where there's a sustainable funding source that replenishes that. And I would love to know, as Commissioner Baker was saying, about the outcomes and how we can align funding to outcomes. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Next up is Commissioner Jenkins. You have your hand up, I believe.
It's a legacy hand. Let me take it now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Commissioner Halbert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very supportive. Thank you, Supervisor Miley, for bringing this item to our attention. I would love to hear more about what's been done in the past. To echo the comments about perhaps finding a way to create a long-term sustainable ongoing effort. So maybe this is a supercharge, keep it going for now, but look at what we can do into the future. But also very excited to hear more about what we do. I also would like to thank AEG. I note that we have many events that we already focus on the youth, and I just can feel the passion of our team to help supporting that, whether it's people that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to go, say, and watch the Harlem Globetrotters play. We find a way to get them in and help those people that otherwise couldn't. And I've been able to work closely with our staff to make that happen. I appreciate their efforts there. That's just one example. There are many. I look forward to doing more. So thank you all. I look forward to hearing next steps.
Thank you so much. And let me come back then to Commissioner Vice Chair Miley. And thank you for bringing this forward.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kaplan. Yeah, a few things. One, I really appreciate the feedback from my fellow commissioners so that the foundation could provide information on its impact, its outcomes. I think that's excellent, an excellent question. And I'm sure that information can be forthcoming. And one reason I did bring this to the JPA was for the whole reason of sustainability. I felt that as long as sports are taking place out at the Coliseum, and as long as AEG Foundation is in existence, this could be our community arm to provide additional support for worthy youth causes in the community. I mean, we can't do enough for youth. Obviously, we just can't do enough. And this would be our contribution through the JPA to the community through this foundation. Clearly, as the chair pointed out, as a county supervisor, the supervisors, we have discretionary funds. You know, we give out multiple millions of dollars all over the county. And I could go to my sources as a county supervisor, plus my colleagues, and ask them to contribute. I just felt this would be more appropriate for the JPA to show its support to a foundation that's doing some good work in the community, as opposed to me funding them or Supervisor Halbert funding them or us collectively funding them and others. We can obviously contribute, but I just felt the JPA should have some skin in the game. And I appreciate Commissioner Iglesias' question about providing more. I came in at $150,000, but clearly if we knew, as I believe Commissioner Jenkins pointed out, what the amount is to sustain their endeavors, or that might have been Commissioner Halbert that mentioned that. Then if we provided a portion of that so we can ensure the sustainability, that would be fantastic. And once again, we heard the budget this morning. The resources are there. It's just a matter of legal saying this is something we can do, and then us carving out, 1% of our gross revenue to support this worthy foundation. I'm just using that as an example. But once again, if the JPA jumps in and supports AEG Community Foundation, and they need additional support, I'm sure myself, Supervisor Halbert, Supervisor Tam possibly, and others would take a look at what we can do as well. But I was hesitant to go down that road until the JPA at least got some skin in the game. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the discussion, including about sustainability and effectiveness, and maybe even identifying specific programs that we might want to fund and support. So I think this is actually a great conversation, and thank you, Vice Chair Miley, for bringing it up. I believe that concludes that item for today. And
although I believe there's one hand for public comment.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, there is. Zenny, if we could allow him to speak, please.
Thank you, Ms. Lake, and thank you, Councilmember Kaplan. First of all, I want to congratulate Nate Miley for taking this action, but also point out that regarding funding, if we have a plan, we have had several discussions of essentially new sports activities coming to the facility. And if we have a business plan for each one of them, you can carve out what to expect to, a foundation fund or anything you want to do, so that we begin to think about these, well, just as a sports commission would, as, related to each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, I like that. And I also appreciate the suggestion to seek to identify a new ongoing source of revenue, like what used to happen with the bag check fees, that would enable this to be sustained on a long-term basis. So thank you all for thinking about that. All right, let me come back to our executive director for any concluding as we prepare to wrap up.
That concludes the agenda items. I will say to Commissioner Jenkins, I think when he was introduced, I told him that our meetings normally conclude within about an hour or so. We are well past that. I do not think that the next meetings will be as lengthy. We had a lot to cover. And so this was an unusually long meeting for us, to our newest commissioner.
Well, we may yet have a new normal as we are undertaking to be a major beacon of revitalization and jobs and opportunity and sports and entertainment and youth activity and more in our community. Mr. Vice Chair Miley.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to, before you conclude, Chair, so will this item come back to us at a future date for both an update from legal on whether or not we can do this, a report on the impact, and then also a report maybe potentially on what it would take to sustain the foundation, and then whether or not we're prepared to take action to support the foundation?
Yes.
We will work to do that. As you mentioned, there are at least 3 areas that we need to explore before bringing it back. One we already mentioned was the legal permissibility. Secondly is what it might take in terms of long-term sustainability. And third, several questions were asked regarding impacts of what the past has been. But we'll try to be expeditious in bringing it back.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It is a great pleasure working with all of you. And we will also look forward to setting up our hybrid and inclusive of in-person meetings going forward. Please save Friday morning, March 17th, and we will keep you posted if that does end up needing to change, but we will work toward that being our date. And in the meantime, we will continue working on these various items that we have been discussing here today. And with that, final check for anything else from the staff or the board, and otherwise we will be adjourning this meeting. So thank you all so much. And we are,
Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, go for it.
Oh, never mind. I was just, you already took public comment, right, on non-agenda items?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, my mistake.
All good. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And with that, we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
The time is 10:40 and the February 17th, 2023 board meeting is adjourned.
So folks, that's adjourned. That is, or was, the JPA meeting, and actually quite a consequential one. We had not 1, but 2 sports events to come, hopefully. One of them, Roots Soccer,
Recording stopped.
and the other, cricket. And I'll comment on those more separately. I think not negatively, of course, but more along the lines of the need to really align and place each one of these operations as part of a business plan, right? So that you know how much to expect from them in terms of revenue, what you're going to do with that revenue, what the costs are, and what the possible negative aspects are, be it traffic or crime, how much security we need, all that should be laid out, because right now, in my opinion, we tend to do these in a piecemeal fashion. The Coliseum is a multi-billion-dollar facility, and we have to change the way we think about it, in fairness to the fact that it is a very expensive asset that sits on a lot of land in a key place, not just in Oakland, but in the San Francisco Bay Area. And really, if you think about it, the West Coast, just 2 miles from the airport, right next to the freeway, and is properly designed to handle large events, which gets to another question I think we need to ask is, given the fact that the meetings, entertainment, incentives, convention entertainment industry, the MICE industry, is only expanding, but primarily because of the internet. How can the Coliseum better capture that industry, rather than tearing down the Coliseum, which some people wanted to do? All right, and which is not going to happen, obviously, with the fact that AASCG has the ENA, which is a great thing. All right, subscribe to Zenny62, bookmark oaklandnewsnowblog.com, and thanks for watching. And it's this broadcast.